Welcome everyone to Exchange 2021. We hope you are doing well and want to thank you for taking time to join us today. I'm Tim Usterman and I'm responsible for solutions marketing for the DBA business unit, reporting to Gur Stife, our president. With me today, I'm delighted to have Guy Eden, our product management leader, and we'll be joined by Joe Goldberg from solutions marketing and Venkat Tadanada from our innovations lab, who will do a demo for y'all. Please use the chat window to ask questions as we go along. Thanks, and let's begin today's discussion, powering DataOps with Control-M workflow orchestration. In today's session, we'll cover these three primary topics: the state of DataOps, why orchestration and automation are so important to successful DataOps, and how Control-M puts the ops in DataOps to solve one of the most difficult challenges, running complex data pipelines at scale in production. So let's begin. I'm starting out this discussion by freely borrowing this slide from our CTO, Ram Chakrabarty. If you saw Ram's session, you'll recognize this. It may be a little bit redundant, but I really think there is powerful information here. It's pretty much stating the obvious that in our world today, it's data everywhere. We are collecting all kinds of data from so many different sources, from individual health details on your digital watch to behaviors on social media, to every e-commerce interaction, to industrial machine sensors out there at the edge of the far-flung network. It's literally all of this, plus every other kind of digital transaction in between. When you think about it, it's staggering. When I started my technology marketing career, we were not still using clay discs with hieroglyphics, but compared to where things are today, it might as well have been that primitive. You can all date yourselves by thinking about the memory capacity of some of your very first personal computing devices. I know, it's not a pretty picture, but today the ability to store data is amazing and amazingly cost-effective. A couple of stats that Ram found were staggering to me. First is that the total data storage in 2020 was nearly 7 zettabytes, and the cost of storage has gone down exponentially over that time. For example, one cloud storage provider was offering 5 terabytes of cloud backup for an annual storage cost of $7. So look, the logic of this is pretty simple. If you think there's information to be gotten from the data collected, it's very cheap to store it to see what you can make of it. The next incredible revolution underway is how fast we can process this stored information. We all know about the classical Moore's law when it comes to the growth in computing power. Now people are talking about Rose's law with the emergence of quantum computing that overcomes the heat, power, and size constraints in Moore's law. Even without quantum computing, the capability we have today in cloud computing, being massively parallel, serverless, and ephemeral, allows us to crunch vast volumes and velocity of data on demand. All of this capability around data collection, storage, and processing means very little if we cannot create insights that drive better business outcomes. This requires data scientists and engineers to use the latest and greatest techniques, including AI, self-learning modeling, and many other sophisticated cutting-edge mathematics that are now just starting to emerge. It's very important to remember, unless all of this data can inform businesses to drive better outcomes, nobody is making any money, are they? This challenge is not lost on executive leadership in the enterprise. In late 2020, 451 Research and BMC Software partnered to survey over 1,200 companies across 20 industries and 11 countries to understand what's top of mind for them in terms of becoming an autonomous digital enterprise. Each of these companies has at least 100 million in annual revenue and has at least 500 employees. Per the survey, the #1 tech priority for customers, both now and 2 years from now, is to become a data-driven business. But I expect that nobody on this call is surprised by this at all. I bet you're all involved in projects at your companies that are all about driving better business decisions and outcomes. And for the few of you that may not be helping deliver the capabilities at your companies in these projects today, it won't be long until you're knee deep in it. And with all this change and focus on becoming a data-driven business, the good news is we are here to help you deliver real value for your companies. So exactly how can Control-M help you? Let's discuss that next. With all the focus on data projects and becoming a data-driven business, it's no wonder there's confusion all around. Look at these charts of available technologies. This is a veritable dog's breakfast of stuff. A mishmash of tools, applications, platforms, and every other category du jour. All of this choice exists because the market is still very new. The startups, the reinventors, the repositioners, they're all diving in. The winners and losers are not chosen yet by the market. And the experimentation by teams across many organizations are all doing something. Some strategic, some ad hoc, and some simply skunkworks. Now imagine for a second that you're on a data ops team and you're the ops representative. What do you know instinctively from looking at this potential chaos? When we talk to our customers who are in the middle of all of this, we hear the same thing again and again. They have to deal with all of this and hopefully get it into production so they can scale the solutions, meet the SLAs, and create a manageable way to orchestrate and automate all these workflows from end to end. Their customers, the data engineers and scientists, are trying to get results. They definitely know ultimately they need to be in production, but very often it's not on the top of their list. They need help to get there. They need you. And then there is production. What about all the possible silos on the prior slide that are going to make production easier for the data engineers and data scientists? Sumit Paul of Gartner captures this challenge very succinctly in his research. He says, companies need a data orchestration system to deal with complex workflows, scheduling and executing in production. He goes on to say, a large part of data engineering teams' focus, and here is the emphasis, should be on orchestration and automation. He says it's a prerequisite to building, running, and deploying data pipelines at scale. Again, these people need help. It's not easy to do, especially when it's not deep in their experience. Production is a different animal. They need your help. Yes, we've seen this before. The story has not changed. The data technologies on the prior slide are changing rapidly, of course. but we know this story. And we know it can end badly or it can end very well. This pain of production comes from many tools and applications having some sort of integrated scheduling capability. Let's remind ourselves of where we've been. Do we think the challenge is different this time? With all these new data solutions, do we think all of them have somehow solved the chaos and silo problem? Or do we think that they are really continuing to create the chaos and therefore the production chaos themselves? That's right. This is the basic flow of a data pipeline. 4 simple stages. Data flows left to right, to and through any or all of these different tools, applications, or platforms in the boxes. Yet, just like most complex application workflows you run today with Control M, the need for data pipeline orchestration and automation is the same. There is fundamentally no difference. That is why we say your Control M platform is the abstraction layer to simplify the most complex of data pipelines. It's the orchestration platform that gives you end-to-end visibility and predictive SLAs across any data technology or infrastructure. Control M helps you help the data engineers and scientists to deliver their data-driven insights in production at scale. And just like we did with Jobs as Code and the automation API for your application developers, our latest innovation and integrations you'll hear about from Guy next will satisfy your toughest internal data customers using their preferred data programming language. Less friction for them and more production for you. It's a win-win. Guy, the floor is yours.
Thanks very much, Tim. Hi, everybody. So you've heard from Tim about the complexity of data operations and data pipelines, and how Control M can potentially help you solve those. And in the standard DataOps cycle, it's really very reminiscent of the DevOps cycle that Tim mentioned. In our DevOps world, we introduced Jobs as Code, which allowed people to programmatically create workflows, and an API which allowed them to deploy automatically. And we're now going to do the same for the world of DataOps. Data scientists live in a world where most things are Python. That's what they like to build in. They often need to integrate with multiple different cloud services and orchestrate all those services across the pipeline. In the case of some of our larger customers, they also have a vast number of integrations to their internal applications they need to get to as well, and be able to pull that data in close to real time into those pipelines. So an awful lot of complexity before they can test that pipeline and deploy it directly into production. So here's some of the things that we're launching or updating in order to make life easy for your data scientists and data engineers and enable them to exploit the compliance and governance that Control M provides, while still feeling that they're in a very simple and easy flow that is very natural to them. The first thing we're launching here at Exchange is our Control M Python client. Python is the language of choice for data engineers and data scientists. And if you read the latest surveys, it's perhaps the most used language in development in general today across all fields. Just as we launched Jobs as Code with the ability to programmatically create JSON workflows, you're now going to be able to create workflows using pure Python. You can use your standard tools, your standard IDE, all of your standard CI/CD tools, remaining entirely within your Python environment. You can create those Control M workflows and submit them into Control M. Just like our automation API, the goal here is to be able to use all of the common data tooling that data scientists and data engineers like to use at the point where they're building and testing their workflows. So Control M Python client is the first of these ingredients to make this flow very easy and very natural. The second is all around integrations. In the world of data, we use many, many different services. Many of these are going to be in different clouds, AWS, Azure, GCP. Some of those might be open source. Our integrations factory initiative is beginning to deliver at a rapid pace integrations to all of these types of cloud services. We already have several for Glue, Data Factory in Azure, a number of Google Cloud integrations. We have Databricks for both AWS and Azure. We're looking in the future at integrations to Azure Logic Apps, GCP BigQuery, AWS Data Pipeline, and many more. We're also thinking about integrations to the common ETL and iPaaS tools that are used in this world, things like Talend and Boomi. A little word about how we're delivering these. Some of you may be familiar with our communities site, which has many integrations. We're actually moving out of that in favor of GitHub. So there are going to be two ways to consume these integrations. One is going to be from GitHub. Once again, very, very natural for developers, data scientists, and data engineers. All these are going to be available there. When you do want to move into production and you want a fully supported version, we'll be providing those on EPD as well, so you'll be able to download the official versions. But for the purposes of testing, sandboxing, and so on, all of these are going to be available, as I said, on GitHub. In order to run them, of course, you need an instance of Control M. And we want to make that very easy as well, so that if you're a data engineer embarking on a project, you want to be able to get up and running as quickly as possible without necessarily talking to IT, certainly without talking to our purchasing department. And we have a number of solutions for that. If you want to run on-prem, we have Workbench. We're in the process of updating Workbench to make it more fully featured. For those of you not familiar, Workbench is our downloadable, free-to-use, full Control M stack. This can be downloaded onto your laptop, run onto a virtual machine. You can deploy your Python workflows into there. You can use our integrations in order to be able to integrate out those cloud services from there. So very, very easy, free to download, simple to install, simple to use. For those of you who are moving towards Helix Control M, our SaaS version of Control M, well, that also comes with a free sandbox. Apart from production and pre-production instances, you can get a free sandbox that will allow your developers to carry out all the testing they need without impinging on production or anything else. So a very easy way for developers to get up and running, for data engineers and data scientists, and indeed machine learning engineers to get up and running and test out the features that Control M can offer in order to orchestrate those workflows. In addition to all those product deliveries, something that we think makes it a little bit simpler for those personas is the fact that a lot of this is being delivered open source. I mentioned that we're delivering a lot of these things to GitHub, so the Python client and many of the integrations we're delivering are actually going to be under a standard BSD open source license. That's something that developers, data engineers are very used to. It means they can download these things for free. It means that you can actually reuse them in any way you like within the organization. If you want, you can improve them. You can contribute them back to GitHub, anything you want. It's a full open BSD license. And as I said, this is going to replace over time what we've done in communities on GitHub. So we've seen that we have the Python client. We have our integrations. We have a variety of sandboxes. We're delivering a lot of this under an open source license. And we think that's going to create a friction-free and very smooth experience for those data personas who would like to use this in order to orchestrate their workflows. Now, of course, at the same time, it remains Control M. So once all this has been done in Control M, it becomes very, very easy to productionize, take those workflows and deploy them into your production system. Coming up in the near future is our Airflow integration. One of the default orchestrators in the data world is, of course, Airflow. We see a number of organizations where Airflow is already in use primarily by the data guys, while Control M runs the rest of the production. And when you need to productionize those Airflow flows, things become complicated because you end up with two silos, with two types of workflows that need to be managed, both of which equally critical, but one of which has fewer tools, by default at least, to help you manage it. With our Airflow integration, you'll be able to take any work that's been done in Airflow and integrate Control M into that. You'll be able to run and monitor Airflow DAGs. That's a directed acyclic graph. That's the Airflow term for their flows. Run and monitor those DAGs from within Control M, and you'll be able to intercept them and administer them all from within Control M. So that move to production becomes even more friction-free for organizations that are using Airflow. So we've got Python, favored language of data engineers. We've got free to use sandboxes and workbenches. We've got lots of integrations coming up for numerous cloud and data services. And all of this is Control M, of course. So all of this becomes easy to productionize, especially when we have the Airflow integration coming up as well. It allows your data teams to maintain usage of their familiar tools and allows operations teams to know that when you productionize everything, you have the full compliance and governance that Control M provides. Let's listen in on a conversation that was recently overheard at a large insurance company.
Hey, hi Joe. I hope you can help. I hope you can help. We're working on a really cool enhancement to our call center. You know, if you ever call for support, you get sent around from agent to agent, you wait forever, and maybe eventually you get help. Well, when our customers call, we want to deliver a completely different experience. We plan to identify them immediately, retrieve all their information, their policies, and predict when they might be, why they might be calling. Then we'll get them to the right agent immediately and give that agent all the information they need to help.
Well, that sounds pretty fantastic. I think I might consider switching my policies here. How can I help?
Well, as you can see, I'm sharing my screen. Here's our design. We are ingesting social, weather, and traffic data. We are using Azure Data Factory, Logic Apps, and some other services. So I'm already trying to manage a whole bunch of tools. But now I also need customer and policy data from our on-prem applications, and it's getting harder to get a handle on all that. We need to build this fast, but we also have to make sure it's rock solid once we get to production. Got any suggestions for me?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, you know that we use Control M to run our mission critical applications here. And it already has integrations for cloud services like Logic Apps, and it virtually runs the entire business. But here's the good news, that's the latest that has come out. We now have available a Python client. So you're familiar with Python, so you'll be able to use it and build your workflows really, really quickly. And you'll also be able to integrate with a variety of new cloud data services like AWS Glue, Azure Data Factory, Databricks, and others. And you can have all of that managed by Control M. So you want to get started?
Sure. I've already have my Collab notebook. And as it is Python, you said, I think all I need to do is do a standard pip install, right?
That's absolutely correct. The name of the library is ctm-python-client.
Okay, that's what I've done. I've installed the Python client. Now, what do I do next?
Well, you know, you have the design of your entire application that you just showed me. So just write those workflows just the way you have it designed.
Nice. I'll start with some OS jobs, database jobs, and one for ADF and Logic Apps. What kind of credentials would I need?
Okay, so I just emailed a URL to you, and together with some credentials, which are your standard Control M credentials.
Okay, that looks great. So I've taken your URI, the user ID and password, and I have created my flow. So I've authenticated to Control M, then I've created a folder and put jobs into it. And the jobs that are created are the command jobs that we talked about, the database jobs, the Azure jobs, and the Logic App jobs. Once I created those jobs, I've chained them to create a flow. And look, this is how the flow looks. How does it feel?
Well, it certainly looks very similar to what you showed me in your design. So I think that looks pretty good. I'd say give it a try.
Okay, thanks, Joe. This flow looks good. I'm ready to run. But one thing, last time you were pretty nervous about me running a lot of jobs during my testing phase.
Well, hey, that's old news. The URL that I sent you is for a sandbox that was put together specifically for your team. you can run as many jobs as you need to do all of the testing that you need to your heart's content.
Nice. Thank you. So all I need to do is run. I have run the job and it says successfully ran job on Control M. And it says log into this to check how the workflow runs. That's great. Now, how do I make sure after my testing that since it all looks good, how do I promote this to production?
So all you're going to have to do is add a couple of commands to your CI/CD pipeline. And that'll take care of exporting all of your work from your testing environments and then promoting it into my pre-prod environment. And I can take over from there and get it running in production.
Great.
Can we take a look?
Yeah, great. Can we do this?
Yeah, let's walk through that manually so that you'll see how that works. So let me share my screen and we'll step through that. Okay, Venkat, can you see my screen?
I do.
Okay, great. So this is the pre-prod environment. I'm just going to make sure that there are no conflicts. I think the folder that you just created is called something like call center load, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, so we can see it's not there. So here are the two commands that you're going to have to execute. First, we'll export from your testing environment the work that you have just created. Once we export that, then I will deploy or import into my pre-prod environment and apply changes that meet our production standards using a facility called deploy descriptors. And once that is finished, so we can see that that worked successfully, if I now refresh my environment, okay, we see that there's now a folder called call center load. So let's take a look at that. And so here is that folder. And that looks pretty much like what you just created, right?
Yes.
Okay, well, it's in my world now. It's part of the production environment. And we'll get this running, and it'll be part of all of the other work that we manage in production with Control M.
Thank you, Joe. This has been helpful.
Well, thanks very much to the representatives of our insurance company there. That was a fascinating overview. Let's review a little bit what we've heard today. We've seen that complex data pipelines are a challenge. Making sure they get into production with all of the governance and compliance required, even more so. What we're trying to do in everything you've seen is provide data engineers and data scientists with a very familiar environment, which is very easy for them to use. We're providing the Python client, so there's a familiar language. We're providing integrations to many of the common data services, particularly in the cloud. We're providing sandboxes, which are easy to use, whether downloaded onto a laptop or as a SaaS service. And we hope that familiarity and that ease of use will help drive that adoption. This will enable you to take those complex pipelines and put them into the framework of Control M, allowing you to exploit all of Control M's governance and compliance capabilities in production while ensuring a friction-free experience for all of your technical users. Thank you very much.